Alrighty, welcome back to another thrilling installment of Wordy Wednesdays. I'm your intrepid narrator, Fragath, and today we're going to be reading more of Down Below Station by CJ Cherryh. I'm pretty sure this is this should be the hardcover, I think. What image number was that? I do not remember. And my image viewer is about to die. Because it's crap. Yeah, there we go. Down Below Station. I would love to get a copy of this. This hardcover. It is a gorgeous hardcover. This, I believe, is the one that has the diagrams as well. Very pretty. I don't mandate that my book collection be in hardcovers, but it is nice when the opportunity presents itself. Actually, out of morbid interest. Just a quick ABE book search. Down Below Station. CJ Cherryh. Hardcover. Okay, there's a Merchanters Luck hardcover. There's that Down Below Station hardcover, which I've already shown. Here we go. Actually, $30 is not bad. I could live with $30. Food for thought. Um, anyway. Oh, I used to go there. Oh, wait, no, that's somewhere different. No, that's a different location. Anyway, um, yeah, $30 for that. I might have to consider that. Anyway, so yeah, a lot went down last week. Uh, Much of last week it was dealing with the aftermath of the climactic battle between Union and uh, and the Mazian fleet. And the Mazian fleet backs out of that and directs their attentions towards Pell and makes it theirs. It became a fleet way station supplying the Mazian fleet. Something they probably should have done earlier, but they didn't have to because they were able to get it from other stations. But now Pell is the last remaining location that is not controlled by Union. Union did a very big push. So, in the wake of this, tensions are on the rise. Tensions are, which only gets worse when Union enters near the system. At which point, the Mazian fleet, the Maziani, go out to ward them off and do battle. And they wind up losing at least one ship, a couple of their, I, I hesitate to call them fighter craft, but outrider vessels as well, as one of their main ships. Um, and at that point, chaos is breaking out all over the station because it's a very quick departure, so the station is all thrown off axis and off kilter, so gravity is doing wonky things. Um, Damon Constantine and is a loose end that Jon Lukas wants cleaned up because Jon Lukas has made his play um, along uh, along with Jessad in order to kill off Angelo Constantine, which he has successfully done. Um, and generally consolidate power under himself on the station. He is helping Jessad, a Union agent, and Jessad is trying to undermine the Mazian fleet and possibly has something that he's going to do to help do them in. It is not clear. Certainly, it is likely that he or someone like him is the reason that some of the other stations that were taken over by Union blew up. So he is currently somewhere nobody knows where he is. He's dipped. He's AWOL, as it were. And Jon Lukas is like, oh shit, um, the Mazian fleet won their little engagement and pushed off the Unioners, and they're coming back, and this guy is nowhere to be found. He might be about to blow the station. This is a problem, because that doesn't do me any good. I can't be king of my little kingdom if my castle is gone, you know, sort of thing. So he's freaked out, even though he's sent goons to kill Damon and incidentally Josh Talley, and that didn't work because Josh Talley is capable of killing people uh, and does. So he and Damon are on the run. Damon wants vengeance, and Josh Talley wants vengeance against Signy Mallory. It's not super duper clear why. Um, we will have more illumination on that. I know, and they don't. I don't think they come out and say it, but we'll get. If they haven't by the end, I'll be like, okay. So the reason he's not thrilled is, etc. So yeah, we will be getting to part 5 at the end of this week, or book 5 as it's called in the book. And what was the last thing we did here? Oh, right. So Porey of the vessel Africa was also sent back, and he is going to secure or ensure that Downbelow is secured. Um, and we haven't heard from them in a while, so it's appropriate that we start with them. Um, there's other characters we haven't heard much from lately, and I think we'll get to a couple of them. So, without further ado, let's get crack-a-lackin'. Chapter 3. Oh, I forgot to hit the button. My bad. Chapter 3. Downbelow main base, 1300 hours, local night. There was still no answer. Emilio pressed Milico's hand against his shoulder and kept leaning over Ernst at calm, while other staff clustered about. No word out of station, no word from the fleet. Porey and his entire force had gone hurtling off-world into a silence that persisted into yet another hour. Give it up, he told Ernst. And when there was a murmuring among other staff, we don't even know who's in control up there. No panic, hear me? I don't want any of that nonsense. If you want to stand around main base and wait for Union to land, fine. I won't object. But we don't know. If Mazian loses, he might take out this facility, you understand? Might just want to destroy it beyond use. Sit here if you like. I've got other ideas. We can't run far enough, a woman said. We can't live out there. Our chances aren't good here either, Milico said. The murmuring swelled into panic. Listen to me, Emilio said. Listen, I don't think their landing in the bush is that easy, unless they've got equipment we haven't heard of. And maybe they'll try blowing up this place. But maybe they'd do that anyway, and I'd rather have cover. Milico and I are taking a trip down the road. We're not going to work for Union, if that's what it comes to up there, or stand here and deal with Porey when he comes back. The murmuring was lower this time, more frightened than panicked. Sir, said Jim Ernst, you want me to stay by com? You want to stay here? No, Ernst said. Emilio nodded slowly, looked about at all of them. We can take the portable compressors, the field dome, dig in when we get somewhere secure. We can survive out there. Our new bases do it. We can. Heads nodded dazedly. It was too hard to realize what they were facing. He himself did not, and knew it. "Flash it down the road, too," he said. "Roll up the operation or stay on as they choose. I'm not forcing anyone to head into the bush if he doesn't think he can make it. One thing we've already seen to, that Union won't get their hands on the downers. So now we make sure they don't get their hands on us. We get food from emergency stores we didn't mention to Porey. We take the portable comm, take some essential units out of the machines we can't take with us, and we just take a walk down the road and into the trees, by truck as far as we can take the trucks, dump the heavy stuff in hiding, carry it to our new dig bit by bit. They might blast the road and the trucks, but any other answer is going to take them time to mount. If anyone wants to stay here and work for the new management, or Porey if he shows up again, then do it. I can't fight you, and I'm not interested in trying." There was near silence. Then some pushed out of the group and started gathering up personal belongings. More and more did. His heart was beating very hard. He pushed Milico toward their quarters to gather up the few of their belongings they could take. It could go the other way. Something could start among them. They could deliver him and Milico to the new owners, if that was what it came to, gain points with the opposition. They could do that. There were far and away enough of them. And Q, and the workers out there. Of his family, no word. His father would have sent some message if he could. If he could. "Make it quick," he told Milico. "Word of this is going every which way out there." He slipped one of the base's only handguns into his pocket as he snatched up his heaviest jacket. He gathered up a box full of cylinders for the breathers, took up a canteen and the short-handled axe. Milico took the knife and a couple of blankets rolled up, and they went out again, into the confusion of staff packing up blanket rolls in the middle of the floor. They stepped over it. "Get the pump shut down," he told a man. "Get the connector out of it." He gave other instructions, and men and women moved, some for the trucks and some for acts of sabotage. "Move it!" he yelled after them. "We're moving in 15 minutes."
"Q," Milico said. "What do we do with them?"
"Give them the same choice. Get down the line, put it to the regular workers if they haven't heard yet." They passed the locked door, through the second and up the wooden steps into night-bound chaos, with people moving as fast as the limited air would let them. There was the sound of a crawler starting up. "Be careful!" he yelled at Milico as their paths diverged. He headed down over the crushed rock path, down and up again onto the shoulder of Q's hill, where the patched, irregular dome showed wan yellow light through its plastic, where Q folk were outside, dressed, looking as if they had no more sleep. Looking as if they had had no more sleep than others this night. "Constantin!" One yelled, alerting the others, and word went into the dome with the speed of a slammed door. He kept walking, went into the midst of them, his heart in his throat. "Come on, get everyone out here!" he yelled, and they began to pour out with a swelling murmur of numbers, fastening jackets, adjusting masks. Oh, I should be doing the mask voice. In a moment, the dome began to collapse, and the lock sighed the air out, a gust of warmth and a flood of bodies that began to surround him. They were all but quiet, a murmur, nothing more. The silence did not comfort him.
"We're pulling out of here," he said. "We don't get any word out of station, and it's possible Union's in control up there. We don't know."
There were outcries of distress, and some of their own number ordered silence.
"We don't know, I say. We're luckier than station. We've got a world under us, food to eat, and if we're careful, air to breathe. Those of us who've lived here know how to manage that, even in the open. You have the same choice we do. Stay here and work for Union, or take a walk with us. It's not going to be easy out there, and I wouldn't recommend it for the older ones and the youngest, but I'm not so sure it's going to be safe here either. We've got a chance out there that they'll think that we're too much bother to come after us. That's it. We're not sabotaging any machine you need for life. The base here is yours if you want it, but you're welcome with us. We're going. Never mind where we're going, unless you're coming with us. And if you come, it's on equal terms. Now. Immediately."
There was dead silence. He was terrified. He was crazy to have come among them alone. The whole camp could not stop them if they panicked. Someone at the back of the crowd opened the door to the dome, and of a sudden there was a murmur of voices, a backflow into the dome, someone shouting that they would need blankets, that they would need all the cylinders, a woman wailing that she could not walk. He stood there while all of Q deserted him into the dome, turned on the slope and looked across to the other domes, where men and women were coming from the residence domes in businesslike haste, carrying blankets and other items, a general flow down to the trough of the hills, where motors whined and headlamps showed. They had the trucks ready. He started down there, faster and faster, walked into the chaos that swirled about the vehicles. They were putting on the field dome and some spare plastic. A staffer showed him a checklist as businesslike as if they were loading for a supply trip. Some people were trying to put their personal loads on the trucks, and staff were arguing with them. And Q was arriving, some of them carrying more than they ought to on Downbelow.
Trucks are for essential materials,
Emilio shouted.
All able-bodied walk. Anyone too old or too sick can perch on the baggage. And any room left, you can put heavy items.
And I have to flip a page.
And any room left, you can put heavy items on. But you share loads here. No one walks light. Who can't walk?
There were shouts from some of the Q folk who had caught up, and they put forward some of the frailer children, some of the old ones. They yelled that there were still some coming. Shouts with a tone of panic.
Easy. We'll get them all on. We'll not be going fast. A kilometer down the road, forest starts, and there is no armored troops likely to hike into it after us.
Milico reached him. He felt her hand on his arm and put his arm about her, hugged her to him. He remained slightly numb. A man had a right to be when his world ended. They were prisoners up there on station, or dead. He began to think of that possibility too, forcing himself to deal with it. He felt sick at the stomach, shaking with anger which he kept in that numb place, away from his thinking process. He wanted to strike out at someone, and there was no one at hand. They got the comm unit on. Ernst supervised the loading of it onto the truck bed, and between emergency power and the portable generator they had... Whoa... Okay. Oh, it's the comm unit, okay. My brain just lost the complete context of the sentence. They got the comm unit on. Ernst supervised the loading of it onto the truck bed, and between emergency power and portable generator they had that for information, if any came. Last of all, the people who would ride, and room enough for bedrolls and sacks, a protective nest. People moved at a run, panting, but there seemed less panic. 2 hours yet till dawn. The lights were still on stored power, the domes still glowing yellow. But there was a sound missing in all the noise of the crawler engines. The compressors were silent. The pulse was gone.
Move them out!
He shouted when there seemed order, and the vehicles started up, began to grind their patient way along the road. They fell in behind, a column shaping itself to the road as it began to parallel the river. They passed the mill and entered the forest, where hills and trees closed on the right hand of the night-bound landscape. The whole progress had a feeling of unreality, the truck's headlamps shining on the reeds and the grass tops and the hillside and the trunks of trees, with the silhouettes of humans trudging along, the hiss and pop of breathers, in curious unison, amid the grinding of the engines. There were no complaints, that was the thing most strange, no objections, as if a madness had seized them all, and they agreed on this. They had had a taste of Mazian's governance. The grass moved beside the road, a serpentine line in the waist-high reeds. Leaves moved among the bushes beside the road hillward. Milico pointed to one such disturbance, and others had seen it, pointing and murmuring in apprehension. Emilio's heart lifted. He reached for Miliko's hand and pressed it, left her and strode out into the weeds and under the trees while the trucks and the column kept on.
Hisa!
I just completely slapped my microphone. I'm so sorry.
Hisa! It's Emilio Constantin. Do you see us?
They came, a handful, shyly advancing into the lights. One came holding out his hands, and he did. And he did. The Downer came to him and embraced him energetically.
Love you.
The young male said.
You go walk, Constantin, man?
Oh, they don't have masks on. Love you, the young male said. You go walk, Constantin, man? Bounder? Is it Bounder? I Bounder, Constantin, man. The shadowed face looked up at him, dim light from now stopped trucks glinting off a sharp-edged grin. I run, 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 come back again, watch you. All we eyes to you, make you safe.
Love you, Bounder. Love you.
The Hisa bobbed in pleasure, fairly danced with it. You go walk?
We're running away. There's trouble in the up above, Bounder, men with guns. Maybe they come down below. We run away like the Hisa, old, young, some of us not strong, Bounder. We look for a safe place.
Bounder turned to his companions, called something which ran up and down scales and chattered from them back to the trees and into the branches above. And Bounder's strange, strong hand slipped about his as the Hisa began to lead him back to the road, where all the column had stopped, those rearmost crowding forward to see.
Mr. Constantin?
One of the staff called from the passenger seat of a truck, nervousness in his voice.
They all right coming in with us? It's all right, he said, and to the others, be glad of them. The Hisa are back. The Downers know who's welcome on Downbelow and who isn't, don't they? They've been watching us all this time, waiting to see if we were all right. You people,
He called out louder still to the unseen masses beyond.
They've come back to us, you understand? The Hisa know all the places we could run to, and they're willing to help us. You hear that?
There was a murmuring of distress.
No Downer ever hurt a man,
He shouted into the dark, over the patient rumble of the engines. He closed his hand more firmly on Bounder's, walked down among them, and Miliko slipped her hand within his elbow on the other side. The trucks started up again, and they walked at the same slow pace. Hisa began to join the column, walking along in the weeds beside the road. Some humans shied from them. Others tolerated the shy touch of an offered hand, even Q folk, following the example of old staffers who were less perturbed by it.
They're all right,
He heard one of his workers call out through the ranks.
Let 'em go where they like. Bounder,
He said.
we want a safe place. Find all the humans from all the camps. Take them to the many safe places.
You want safe, want help. Come, come. The strong hand stayed within his, small as if they were father and child. But for all of youth and size, it was the other way about. That humans went as the children now, down a known human road to a known human place, but they were not coming back, might never. He acknowledged it, might never come back. Come we place, Bounder said. You make we safe. We dream bad mans away and they go. And you come now. We go dream. No Hisa dream, no human dream. Together dream. Come dream place. He did not understand the babble. There were places beyond which humans had never gone among Hisa. Dream places. It was already a dream, this mingled flight of humans and Hisa, in the dark, in the overturning of all that had been down below. They had saved the Downers, and in the long years of Union rule, when humans came who cared nothing for the Hisa, there would be humans among the Hisa who could warn them and protect them. There was that much left to do.
They'll come some day,
He said to Miliko,
and want to cut down the trees and build their factories and dam the river and all the rest of it. That's the way of it, isn't it? If we let them get away with it.
He swung Bounder's hand, looked down at the small, intense face on the other side.
We go warn other camps. Want to bring all humans into the trees with us. Go for a long, long walk. Need good water, good food.
Hisa find, Bounder grinned, the suspicion of a great joke shared by Hisa and humans. Not hide good you food. They could not hold an idea for long, so some insisted. Perhaps the game would pall when humans had no more gifts to give. Perhaps they would lose their awe of humans and drift their own ways. Perhaps not. The Hisa were not the same as they had been when humans came. Neither were humans on Downbelow. Chapter 4 Merchanter Hammer Deep Space 1900 Hours Vittorio poured a drink, his second since space around them had suddenly become filled with a battle-worn fleet. Things had not gone as they should. A silence had fallen over Hammer, the bitter silence of a crew who felt an enemy among them, a witness to their national humiliation. He met no eyes, offered no opinions, had only the desire to anesthetize himself with all due speed, so that he could not be blamed for any matters of policy. He did not want to give advice or opinions. He was plainly a hostage. His father had set things up that way. And it occurred to him inevitably that his father might have double-crossed them all, that he might now be worse than a useless hostage, that he might be one whose card was due to be played. My father hates me, he had tried to tell them, but they had shrugged it off as irrelevant. They did not make the decisions. The man Jessad had done that. And where was Jessad now? There was supposed to be some visitor on his way to the ship, some person of importance. Jessad himself, to report failure and to dispose of a useless bit of human baggage? He had time to finish the second drink before the activity of the crew and eventual nudge at the hull reported a contact. There was a great deal of machinery slamming and the noise of the lift going into function, a crash as the cage synced with the rotation cylinder. Someone was coming up. He sat still with the glass before him and wished that he were a degree drunker than he was. The upward curve of the deck curtained the lift exit beyond the bridge. He could not see what happened, only noted the absence of some of Hammer's crew from their posts. He looked up in sudden dismay as he heard them coming round the other way, from his back, into the main room through crew quarters. Blasts of the Hammer. 2 crew. A number of military strangers and some not in uniform behind them. Vittorio gathered himself shakily to his feet and stared at them. A gray-haired officer in rejuve, resplendent with silver and rank. And Diane Jacoby. Vittorio Lukas, Blas identified him. Captain Seb Azov, over the fleet. Mr. Jacoby of your own station, and Mr. Seagust Ayres of Earth Company. Security Council, that one corrected. Azov sat down at the table, and the others found places on the benches round about. Vittorio settled again, his fingers numb on the table's surface. He was surrounded by an alcoholic gulf that kept coming and going. He tried to sit naturally. They had come to see him. Him. And there was no possible help he could be to them or to anyone. The operation has begun, Mr. Lukas, Azov said. We've eliminated 2 of Mazian's ships. They won't be easy to get out. They're hanging close to station. We've sent for additional ships, but we've driven the merchanters out, all the long haulers. The ones left are Pell short haulers, serving as camouflage. What do you want with me? Vittorio asked. Mr. Lukas, you're acquainted with the merchanters based out of station. You've run Lucas Company, at least to some extent, and you know the ships. He nodded apprehensively. Your ship Hammer, Mr. Lukas, is going back within hail of Pell, where it regards merchanters, and where it regards merchanters, you'll be Hammer's comm operator. Not under your real name, no. You'll be given a file on the Hammer family, which you'll study very carefully. You'll answer as one of them. But should Hammer be challenged by merchanter militia or by Mazian, your life will rely on your skill in invention. Hammer will suggest to the merchanters remaining that their best course for survival would be to get to the system fringe and have nothing to do with this matter, to get utterly out of the way and cease trade with Pell. We want those ships out of the way, Mr. Lukas, and it wouldn't at all be politic to have merchanters know we've tampered with Hammer and Swan's Eye. We don't intend to have that known. You understand me? The crews of those ships, he thought, would never be set free, not without adjustment. It occurred to him that his own memory was hazardous to Union, that it would never be politic to have merchanters know Union had violated merchanter neutrality, which they claimed as a sin of Mazians alone, that they had confiscated not just personnel by impressment, but whole ships and names. Most of all, the names, the trust, the selves of those people. He fingered the empty glass before him, realized what he was doing, and stopped at once, trying to seem sober and sensible. My own interests lie in that direction, he said. My future on Pell is far from assured. How so, Mr. Lukas? I entertain some hopes of a Union career, Captain Azov. He lifted his eyes to Azov's grim face, hoping that he sounded as calm as he tried to be. Relations between myself and my father are not warm, so he threw me to you quite willingly. I've had time to think. Plenty of time. I prefer to make my own understandings with Union. Pell is running out of friends, Azov observed softly, with a glance at the sad-faced Mr. Ayres. Now the indifferent desert her. The will of the governed, Mr. Ambassador. Ayres' eyes turned toward Azov, sidelong. We have accepted the situation. It was never the intent of my mission to obstruct the will of the people resident in these areas. Only I am anxious for the safety of Pell Station. We are talking about thousands of lives, sir. Siege, Mr. Ayres. We cut them off from supplies and disrupt their operations until they grow uncomfortable. Azov turned his face toward Vittorio, stared at him a moment. Mr. Lukas, we have to prevent their access to the resources of the mines and of Downbelow itself. A strike there, possible, but militarily costly getting to it, and costly in its effect. So we proceed by disentanglement. Mazian has a death grip on Pell. He'll leave ruin if he loses, blow down below and the station itself, fall back toward the hinder stars, toward Earth. Do you want your precious mother world used for a Maziani base, Mr. Ayres? Ayres shot him a troubled look. Ah, he is capable of it, Azov said, not ceasing to look at Vittorio, a cold, penetrating stare. Mr. Lukas, that is as much as your duty involves. To gather information, to dissuade merchanters from trade. Do you understand? Do you think that's within your capacity? Yes, sir. Azov nodded. You'll understand, Mr. Lukas, if we excuse you and Mr. Jacobi at this point. He hesitated, a little dazed, realized it fuzzily as an order, and that Azov's gray stare brooked no counter-suggestions. He rose from the table. Dain excused himself past Ayres, and that left Ayres, Blas, and Azov in council. Hammer's captain prepared to receive orders, the nature of which he much wished to know. Ships had been lost. Azov had not told the truth as it was. He had heard the crew talking. There were whole carriers missing. They were to be sent into that. He paused where the curve curtained the meeting area, looked back at Dain, sank down on a bench at the table in the crew quarters. Is that Blast talking? Oh, it's Vittorio still. You all right? He asked Dain, for whom he had never had great affection, but a face from home was very welcome in this cold place, in these circumstances. Dain nodded. And you? It was more courtesy than he had generally had from Uncle Dain. Fine. Dain settled opposite. Truth, Vittorio asked him. How many did they lose out there? Took heavy damage, Dain said. I reckon that Mazian cost them some. I know there are ships missing. Carriers Victory and Endurance gone, I think. But Union can build more. They're calling others in. How long is this going to go on? Dain shook his head, rolled a meaningful glance at the overhead. The fans hummed, deadening conversation into the local areas, but not shielding them from monitoring. They've got him cornered, Dain said then, and they can get supplies indefinitely, but Mazian's bottled. What Azov said, that was the truth. He cost them badly, but they cost him worse. And what about us? I'd rather be here than at Pell, frankly. Vittorio gave a bitter laugh. His eyes blurred, a sudden pain in his throat, which was never really gone, and he shook his head. I meant it, he said, for those who might chance to be monitoring them. I'll give Union the best I've got. It's the best thing I ever had going for me. Dain regarded him strangely, frowned, and perhaps understood his meaning. For the first time in his 25 years he felt a kinship with someone. That it should be Dain, who was 3 decades older and had a different experience, that surprised him. But a little time in the deep might make comrades out of the most unlikely individuals, and perhaps, he thought, perhaps Dain had already made such choices, and Pell was no longer home for either of them. Chapter 5 1. Pell, Green Dock, 2000 hours, main day, 0800 hours, alter day. Fire hit the wall. Damon flinched tighter into the corner they occupied, resisted half a heartbeat as Josh seized him and sprang up to run, followed them, dodged among the panicked and screaming crowds which backwashed out of Green 9 into the docks. Onto the docks, even. Someone did get shot, rolled on the decking at their feet, and they jumped that body and kept going in the direction the troops meant to drive them. Station residents, queue escapees, there was no difference made. They ran with fire peppering the supports and the storefronts, silent explosions in the chaos of screams, shots aimed at structures and not the vulnerable station shell itself. Shots went over their heads now that the crowd was moving, and they ran until the weakest faltered. Damon slowed as Josh did, found himself in White Dock, the two of them weaving through the scattered number still running in panic, the last few who in their terror seemed to think the shots were still coming. He saw shelter among the shops by the inner wall, went that way, and Josh followed him, to the recessed doorway of a bar which had been sealed against rioters, a place to sit quietly, out of the way of chance shots. Several bodies lay out on the dock before them, new or old was not certain. It had become an ordinary sight in recent hours. There were occasional acts of violence while they sat there against the doorway, fights among stationers and what might be queue residents. Mostly people wandered, sometimes calling out names, parents hunting children, friends or mates hunting each other. Sometimes there were relieved meetings. And once, a man identified one of the dead and screamed and sobbed. Damon bowed his face against his arms. Eventually, some men helped the relative away. And eventually the military sent detachments of armored troops into the area to round up work crews, ordering them to gather up the dead and vent them. Damon and Josh slunk deeper into the doorway and evaded that duty. It was the active and restless the troops picked. Last of all, Downers came out of hiding, timidly, with soft steps and fearful looks about. They took it on themselves to clean the docks, scrubbing away the signs of death, faithful to their ordinary duties of cleanliness and order. Damon looked at them with a slight stirring of hope, the first good thing he had seen in all these hours, that the gentle Downers returned to the service of Pell. He slept a little, as others did who sat over in the docking areas, as Josh did beside him, curled up against the door frame. From time to time he roused to general calm announcements of restored schedules, or the promise that food would be forthcoming in all areas. Food. The thought began to obsess him. He said nothing of it, his knees tucked up within his arms and his limbs feeling weak with hunger. Weakness, he thought it, regretting a neglected breakfast. No lunch, no supper. He was not accustomed to hunger. It was, as he had ever felt it, a missed meal on a day of heavy work. An inconvenience. A discomfort. It began to be something else. It put a whole new complexion on resistance to anything, played games with his mind, forecast whole new dimensions of misery. If they were to be caught and recognized, it was likely to be in some food line, but they had to come out for that, or starve. Their very remaining still grew obvious as the aroma of food swept the docks, and the others moved as carts trundled along, pushed by Downers. People mobbed the carts, started snatching and shouting, but the troops escorted each then, and it calmed down quickly. The food carts, stores diminished, came closer. They stood up, leaned there in the recess. I'm going out there, Josh said finally. Stay back. I'll say you're hurt. I'll get enough for both of us. Damon shook his head. It was perverse courage to test his survival, sweaty, uncombed, in dirty, bloody coveralls. If he could not cross the dock for fear of an assassin's gun or a trooper recognizing him, he was going to go mad. At least they did not look to be asking for ID cards for the meals. He had 3 of them, and his own, which he dared not use. Josh had 2 and his own, but they did not match the pictures. A simple act, to walk out with a guard watching, to take a cold sandwich and a carton of lukewarm fruit drink, and to retreat. But he retired to the sheltering storefront with a sense of triumph in his prize, crouched there to eat as Josh joined him. Ate and drank, feeling in that mundane act as though a great deal of the nightmare were past, and he was caught in some strange new reality, where human feelings were not required, only an animal wariness. And then a shrill ripple of Downer language, the one with the food cart speaking out across the dock to others of his kind. Damon was startled. Downers were generally shy when things were quiet around them. It startled the escorting trooper, who lowered his rifle and looked all about. But there was nothing, only quiet, frightened people and solemn, round-eyed Downers, who had stopped and now went about their business. Damon finished his sandwich as the cart passed on along the upward curve of the dock toward Green. A Downer came near them, dragging a box into which he was collecting the plastic containers. Josh looked anxious as the Downer held out his hand, surrendered the wrappers. Damon tossed his in the box, looked up in fright as the Downer rested a gentle hand on his arm.
You Constantine, man.
Go away, he whispered hoarsely. Downer, don't say my name. They'll kill me if they see me. Be quiet and go away quick.
I Bluetooth. Bluetooth, Constantine, man.
Bluetooth.
He remembered. The tunnels. The Downer who had been shot. The strong Downer fingers closed tighter.
Downer name Lily send from son she friend. You name Lisha. She send we make Lucas's quiet, not come in she place. Love you, Constantine, man. Lisha she safe. Downers all round she keep she safe.
We bring you. You want?
He could not breathe for the moment.
Alive? She's alive?
Lisha, she's safe. She send you come, make you safe with she.
He tried to think, clung to the furred hand, and stared into the round brown eyes, wanting far more than Downer patois could say. He shook his head.
No, no, it's danger to her if I come there. Men with guns, you understand, Bluetooth. Men hunt me. Tell her, tell her I'm safe. Tell her I hide all right. Tell her Eileen got away with the ships. We're all right. Does she need me, Bluetooth? She needs?
Safe in she place. Downers sit with she. All downers in up above. Lily with she. Satin with she. All. All.
Tell her, tell her I love her. Tell her I'm all right and Eileen is. Love you, Bluetooth.
Brown arms hugged him. He embraced the Downer fervently, and the Downer left him and slipped away like a shadow, quickly occupied himself with picking up debris not far away, wandered off. Damon looked about him, fearful that they might have been observed, met nothing but Josh's curious gaze. He glanced away, wiped his eyes on the arm which rested across his knee. The numbness diminished. He began to be afraid again, had something to be afraid for, someone who could still be hurt.
Your mother, Josh said. Is that what he was talking about?
He nodded, without comment.
I'm glad.
Josh offered earnestly. He nodded a second time, blinked, tried to think, feeling his brain subjected to jolt after jolt until there was no sense in it.
Damon.
He looked up, followed the direction of Josh's stare. Squads of troops were coming off the horizon, out of Green Dock, formed up and meaning business. Quietly, nonchalantly, he rose, dusted his clothing, turned his back to the dock to give Josh cover while he got up. Very casually they began to move along in the other direction.
Sounds like they're about to get organized out there, Josh said.
We're all right, he insisted.
They were not the only ones moving. The Niner Hall of White was not that far. They drifted with others who seemed to have the same motive, found a public restroom next to one of the bars that sat at the corner of White 9. Josh turned in there, and he... What? Let me reread that. They drifted with others who seemed to have the same motive, found a public restroom next to one of the bars that sat at the corner of White 9. Josh turned in there, and he walked in after. They both made use of it and walked out again, taking a normal pace. Guards had been posted at the intersections of the corridor with the dock, but they were not doing anything, only watching. He walked further down 9, stopped at a public call unit.
Screen me, he said,
and Josh obligingly leaned against the wall between them and the opening of 9 where the guards stood.
Going to see what cards we have, how many credits, where the original owners belonged. I don't need my own priority to do that, just a records number.
I know one thing, Josh said in a low voice. I don't look like a Pell citizen, and your face...
No one wants to be noticed. No one can turn us in without being noticed himself. That's the best hope we've got. No one wants to be conspicuous.
He thrust in the first card and keyed the override. Altner, Leslie. 789.9 credits in comp. Married. A child. Clerk, clothing concession. He put that one in his left pocket, not to use, not wanting to steal from the survivors. Lee Anton Quayle, single man, staff card with Lukas Company, restricted clearance. 8,967.89 credits. An amazing amount for such a man. William Teal, married man, no children, loading boss, 4,567.67 credits, warehouse clearances.
Let's see yours,
he said to Josh. Josh handed his over together, and he shoved the first in, hastening feverishly, wondering whether so many inquiries in a row off a public terminal might not set Comp Central off. Cecil Sazzoni, single man, 456.78 credits, machinist and sometime loader, barracks privileges. Louis Diban, 5-year marriage terminated, no dependents, 3,421.56 credits, dock crew foreman. He pocketed the cards and started walking as Josh followed and caught up with him, around the corner into a cross hall, and around the next corner to the right. There was a storeroom there. All the docks were mirror image one of the other when it came to the central corridors, and there was inevitably a storage room for maintenance hereabouts. He found the appropriate, unmarked door, used the foreman's card to open it, and turned on the lights. There was ventilation, a store of paper and cleaning supplies, and tools. He stepped in with Josh behind him and punched the door closed.
"A hole to hide in," he said, and pocketed the card he had used, reckoning it the best key they had. "We sit it out, go on alter-day shift a day or so. 2 of our cards were alter-day people, single, with dock clearance. Sit down. Lights will go out in here in a moment. Can't keep them on. Comp will find a storeroom light on and turn it out on us. Very economical."
"Are we safe here?" He laughed bitterly, sank down against the wall, legs tucked up in the cramped space to afford Josh room to sit down opposite him. He felt of the gun still in his pocket, to be sure it was there. Drew a breath.
"Nowhere is safe."
Tired, the angel's face, grease-smudged, hair stringy. Josh looked terrified, though it had been Josh's instincts that had saved them under fire. Between the two of them, one knowing the accesses and one with the right reflexes, they made a tough problem for Mazian.
"You've been shot at before," he said. "Not just in a ship. Close up. You know that?"
"I don't remember."
"Don't you?"
"I said I don't."
"I know the station. Every hole, every passage, and if shuttles start moving again, if any ships start going and coming from the mines, we just use the cards to get close enough to the docks, join a loading crew, walk onto a ship."
"Go where, then?"
"Downbelow, or Outworld mines. No questions asked in either place."
It was a dream. He fabricated it to comfort them both.
"Or maybe Mazian will decide he can't go on holding here. Maybe he'll just pull out."
"He'll blow it if he does. Blow the station and the installations on Downbelow with it. Would he want to leave Union a base to use against him when he falls back?"
Damon frowned at truth he already knew. "You have a better suggestion what we should do?"
"No."
"I could turn myself in, negotiate to get back in control, evacuate the station."
"You believe that?"
"No," he said.
That account, too, he had already added up. No. The lights went out. Comp had shut them down. Only the ventilation continued. Part 2. Pell, Station Central. 21:30 hours main day. 09:30 hours alter day.
"But there's no need,"
Porey said softly, his dark, scarred face implacable.
"There's no further need for your presence, Mr. Lukas. You've done your civic duty. Now go back to your quarters. One of my people will be sure you get there safely."
Jon looked about at the control center, at the several troopers who stood there, with the safeties off the rifles, with eyes constantly on the fresh shift of techs who managed the controls, the others under guard for the night. He gathered himself to pass orders to the comp chief, stopped cold as a trooper made a precise move, a hollow scrape of armor, a lowered rifle.
"Mr. Lukas," Porey said, "people are shot for ignoring orders."
"I'm tired," he said nervously. "I'm glad to go, sir. I don't need the escort."
Porey motioned. One of the troopers by the door stood smartly aside, waiting for him. Jon walked out, the trooper treading behind him at first, and then beside him, an unwanted companion. They passed other troops back on guard in quiet, riot-scarred Blue 1. More of the fleet was docking. They had drawn in to a tighter perimeter, decided finally to dock, which seemed to him military insanity, a risk he did not understand. Mazian's risk. His now. Pell's, because Mazian was back. Perhaps, he found it hard to think, Union had been beaten badly. Perhaps there were things kept secret. Perhaps there would be delay in the Union takeover. It worried him, the thought that Mazian's rule might be long. Suddenly, troops exited the lift ahead into Blue 1, troops bearing a different insignia. They intercepted him, presented his escort with a slip of paper.
Come with us,
one ordered.
I was instructed by Captain Porey.
Oh, that's sorry.
I was instructed by Captain Porey,
He objected, but another nudged him with a gun barrel and moved him toward the lift. Europe, their badges said. Europe troops. Mazian had come in.
Where are we going?
He asked in panic. They had left the Africa trooper behind.
Where are we going?
There was no answer. It was deliberate bullying. He knew where they were going, had his suspicions confirmed when, after descent in the lift, he was walked down the blue Niner corridor, out onto the docks, toward the glowing access tube of a docked ship. He had never been aboard a warship. It was cramped as a freighter for all its exterior size. It made him claustrophobic. The rifles in the hands of the troopers at his back gave him no more comfort, and whenever he would hesitate, turning left, entering the lift, they would push him with the rifle barrels. He was sick with fear. They knew, he kept thinking. He kept trying to persuade himself it was military courtesy, that Mazian wished to bluff or bully. But from this place they could do what they pleased, could vent him out a waste chute, and he would be indistinguishable from the hundreds of other bodies which now drifted, frozen, a nuisance in the station's vicinity for the skimmers to freeze together and boost off. No difference at all. He tried to pull his wits together, reckoning that he survived by them now or not at all. They showed him off the lift into a corridor with troops standing guard in it, into a room wider than most, with a vacant round table. Made him sit down in one of the chairs there. Stood waiting with the rifles over their arms. Mazian came in plain and somber blue, haggard of face. John rose to his feet in respect. Conrad Mazian gestured him to sit down again. Others filed in to take their places at the table. Europe officers, none of the captains. John darted glances from one to the next.
Acting Station Master,
Mazian said quietly.
Mr. Lukas, what happened to Angelo Constantin?
Dead, John said, trying to suppress all but innocent reactions.
Rioters broke into station offices, killed him and all his staff.
Mazian only stared at him, utterly unmoved. He sweated.
We think, John said further, guessing at the captain's thoughts, that there may have been conspiracy. The strike at other offices, the opening of the door in the queue, the timing of it all. We are investigating.
What have you found?
Nothing as yet. We suspect the presence of Union agents passed somehow into station during the processing of refugees. Some were let through, may have had friends or relatives left back in queue. We're puzzled as yet how contacts were passed. We suspect connivance of the barrier guards, black market connections.
But you haven't found anything.
Not yet.
And won't very quickly, will you, Mr. Lukas? His heart began beating very fast. He kept panic from his face. He hoped he succeeded at it.
I apologize for the situation, Captain, but we've been kept rather busy, coping with riot, with the damage to station, lately working at the orders of your Captains Mallory and—
Yes, bright move, the means you used to clear the halls of riot, but then it had quieted a little by then, hadn't it? I understand there were Q residents let into Central. John found breathing difficult. There was a prolonged silence. He could not think of words. Mazian passed a signal to one of the guards at the door.
We were in crisis,
John said, anything to fill that terrible silence. "I may have acted high-handedly, but we were presented a chance to get control of a dangerous situation. Yes, I dealt with the counselor from that area, not, I think, involved in the situation, but a calming voice. There was no one else at the—" "Where is your son, Mr. Lukas?" He stared. "Where is your son?"
Out at the mines. I sent him out on a short haul or on a tour of the mines. Is he all right? Have you had word of him?"
"Why did you send him, Mr. Lukas?"
"Frankly, to get him off the station."
"Why?"
"Because he had lately been in control over the station offices while I was stationed on Downbelow. After 3 years there was some question of loyalties and authorities and channels of communication within the company offices here. I thought a brief absence might straighten things out, and I wanted someone out there in the mine offices who could take over if communications were interrupted. A policy move, for internal reasons and for security."
It wasn't to balance the presence on station of a man named Jessad? His heart came close to stopping. He shook his head calmly.
"I don't know what you're talking about, Captain Mazian. If you'd be so good as to tell me the source of your information."
Mazian gestured, and someone entered the room. John looked and saw Bran Hale, who evaded his eyes. "Do you know each other?" Mazian asked.
"This man," John said, "was discharged on Downbelow for mismanagement and mutiny. I considered a previous record and hired him. I am afraid my confidence may have been misplaced."
Mr. Hale approached Africa with some thought of enlistment, claimed to have certain information, but you flatly deny knowing a man named Jessad.
"Let Mr. Hale speak for his own acquaintances. This is a fabrication."
"And one Kressich, Counselor of Q?"
"Mr. Kressich was, as I explained, in the control center."
"So was this Jessad."
"He might have been one of Kressich's guards. I didn't ask their names."
"Mr. Hale?" Bran Hale put on a grim face.
"I stand by my story, sir."
Mazian nodded slowly, carefully drew his pistol. John thrust back from the table, and the men behind him slammed him back into the chair. He stared at the pistol, paralyzed. "Where is Jessad? How did you make contact with him? Where would he have gone?"
"This fiction of Hale's—"
The safety went off the pistol audibly.
"I was threatened," John breathed. "Threatened into cooperation. They've seized a member of my family."
"So you gave them their son? So you gave them your son?"
"I had no choice."
"Hale," Mazian said, "you and your companions and Mr. Lukas may go into the next compartment, and we'll record the proceedings. We'll let you and Mr. Lukas settle your argument in private, and when you've resolved it, bring him back again."
"No," John said. "No, I'll give you the information, all that I know."
Mazian waved his hand in dismissal. John tried to hold to the table. The men behind him hauled him to his feet. He resisted, but they brought him along, out the door, into the corridor. Hale's whole crew was out there.
"They'll serve you as well,"
John shouted back into the room where the officers of Europe still sat.
"Take him in and he'll serve you the same way. He's lying."
Hale grasped his arm, propelled him into the room which waited for them. The others crowded after. The door closed.
"You're crazy," John said. "You're crazy, Hale."
"You've lost," Hale said. One good turn deserves another, says I. One good turn. Ah, karma. Part 3. Merchanter Finity's End. Deep Space. 2200 hours main day. 1 hours alter day. The wink of lights, the noise of ventilators, and sometimes sputter of calm from other ships. All of this had a dreamlike familiarity, as if Pell had never existed, as if it were Estelle again, and the folk about her might turn and show familiar faces known from childhood. Eileen worked her way through the busy control center of Finity's End and pressed herself into the nook of an overhanging console to obtain a view of Scan. Her senses were still muzzy with drugs. She pressed her hand to her belly, feeling unaccustomed nausea. Jump had not hurt the child. Would not. Merchanters had proven that time and again. Merchanter women with strong constitutions and lifelong habituation to the stresses. It was 9/10 nerves, and the drugs were not that heavy. She would not lose it, would not even think of it. In time her pulse settled again from the short walk from main room, the waves of sickness receded. She watched Scan acquire another blip. Merchanters were coming into the null point by drift, the way they had left Pell, frantically gathering all the real space speed they could on entry to keep ahead of the incomers who were rolling in like a tide on a beach. All it needed was someone overshooting minimum, some over-hasty ass coming into real space too close to the point, and they and the newcomer would cease to exist in any rational sense, shredded here and there. She had always thought it she had always thought it a peculiarly nasty fate. They would ride for the next few minutes still with that. They would ride with for the next few minutes still with that end a very real possibility. But they were coming in greater and greater numbers now, finding their way into this refuge in reasonable order. They might have lost a few passing through the battle zone. She could not tell. Nausea hit again. It came and went. She swallowed several times in calm determination to ignore it, turned a jaundiced eye on Neihart, who had left the controls of the ship to his son and came to see her. "Got a proposition," she said between swallows. "You let me have calm again. No running from here. Take a look at what's following us, Captain. Most of the merchanters that ever ran freight for company stations. That's a lot of us, isn't it? And if we want to, we can reach further than that." What do you have in mind?
That we stand up and safeguard our own interests. That we start asking ourselves hard questions before we scatter out of here. We've lost the stations we served. So do we let Union swallow us up, dictate to us, because we become outmoded next to their clean new state-run ships? And they could take that idea into their heads if we come to them begging license to serve their stations. But while things are uncertain, we've got a vote and a voice, and I'm betting some of the so-named Union merchanters can see what's ahead, too, clear as we can. We can stop trade. All worlds, all stations. We can shut them down. Half a century of being pushed around, Neihart. Half a century of being marked for any warship. For being marked for any warship not in the mood to regard our neutrality. And what do we get when the military has it all? You want to give me calm access?"
Neihart considered a long moment. When it goes sour, Quen, word will spread far and wide what ship spoke out for it. It's trouble for us.
"I know that," Eileen said hoarsely, "but I'm still asking it."
You've got calm if you want it.
Part 4. Pell, Blue Dock, aboard Norway. 2400 hours main day, 1200 hours alter day. Signy turned restlessly and came up against a sleeping body, a shoulder, an inert arm. Who it was she did not remember for a moment, in her half-sleep confusion. Graf, she decided finally. Graf. She settled comfortably again, against him. They had come off shift together. She kept her eyes open on the dark wall for a moment, the row of lockers, in the starlight glow of the light overhead. Not liking the images she saw against her lids, the remembered reek of dying in her nostrils, that she could not bathe away. They held Pell. Atlantic and Pacific made their lonely patrol with all the riders in the fleet, so that they dared sleep. She earnestly wished it were Norway on patrol. Poor Di Jans was in command over the docks, sleeping in the forward access when he got sleep at all. Her troops were scattered throughout the docks, in a dark mood. 17 wounded and 9 killed in the Q outbreak did not improve their attitude. They would stand watch one shift on and the other off and keep on doing it. Beyond that, she made no plans. When the Union ships came in, they would come, and the fleet would react as they had been doing in places of odds as bad as this. Fire at the reachable targets and keep the remaining options open as long as possible. Mazian's decision, not hers. She closed her eyes finally, drew a deliberately peaceful breath. Graf stirred against her, settled again, a friendly presence in the dark. Part 5. Pell, Sector Blue 1, number 0475, 2400 hours main day, 1200 hours alter day.
She sleep,
Lily said. Satin drew in a breath and settled her arms about her knees. They had pleased Sun her friend. The dreamer had wept for joy to hear the news that Bluetooth had brought, the Constantine man and his friend safe. So awesome the sight of tears on that tranquil face. All the Hisa's hearts had hurt within them, until they understood it was happiness. And a warmth had sat within the dark and lovely eyes that they had crowded close to see.
love you, the dreamer had whispered. Love you, everyone.
And
Keep him safe.
then at last she smiled and closed her eyes.
Sun shining through clouds.
Satin nudged Bluetooth, and he who had been zealously grooming himself, trying vainly to bring order to his coat for respect of this place, looked toward her.
You go back and you set your own eyes on this young Constantine man. Up above Hisa are one thing, but you are very quick, very clever down below hunter. You watch him come and go.
Bluetooth cast an uncertain look at Old One and at Lily.
Good,
Lily agreed.
good, strong hands. Go.
He preened diffidently, a young male, but others gave him place. Satin regarded him with pride, that even the old strange one saw worth in him. And truth, there was keen good sense in her friend. He touched the old ones and touched her, quietly excused himself toward the outside of the gathering. And the dreamer slept, safe in their midst, although a second time humans had fought humans and the secure world of the up above had rocked like a leaf on the breast of a river. Sun watched over her, and the stars still burned about them. Chapter 6. Downbelow, October 11th, 2352, local day. The trucks moved at a lumbering pace through the clear area, forlorn, collapsed domes, the empty pens, and above all the silence of the compressors, telling a tale of abandonment. Base 1. First of the camps after main base. Lock doors banged loosely, unfastened, in a slight wind. The weary column straggled now, all looking at the desolation, and Emilio looked on it with a pang in his own heart, this thing that he had helped to build. No sign of anyone staying here. He wondered how far down the road they were, and how they fared.
Hisa watch here too?
He asked of Bluetooth, who, almost alone of Hisa, still remained with the column, beside him and Milico.
We eyes see,
Bluetooth answered, which told him less than he wanted.
Mr. Constantine.
A man came up from the back, walked along with him, one of the queue workers.
Mr. Constantine, we have to rest. Past the camp, he promised. We don't stay in the open longer than we can help, all right? Past the camp.
The man stood still and let the column pass and his own group overtake him.
Emilio gave Milico's shoulder a weary pat, increased his own pace to overtake the two crawlers ahead of the column. He passed one in the clearing, overtook the other as they reached the farther road, got the driver's attention, and signed him half a kilometer halt. He stopped then and let the column move until he was even with Milico. He reckoned that some of the older workers and the children might be at the end of their strength. Even walking with the breathers was about the limit of exertion they could take over this number of hours. They kept stopping for rest, and the requests grew more and more frequent. They began to struggle as it was, some of them stringing further and further behind. He drew Milico aside and watched the line pass.
Rest ahead,
He told each group as they passed.
keep on till you get there.
In time, the back of the column came in sight, a draggled string of walkers, the older ones patient and doggedly determined, and a couple of staffers who walked last of all.
Anyone left?
He asked, and they shook their heads. And suddenly a staffer was coming down the winding road from the other end of the column, jogging, staggering into other walkers, as the line erupted with questions. Emilio broke into a run with Milico in his wake, intercepting the man.
Come! Got through!
The runner gasped, and Emilio kept running, the slanted margins of the road, up the tree-curtained windings until he saw the trucks and people massed about them. He circled through the trees and worked his way through the crowd, which broke to let him, toward the lead. Oh, geez, there is a comma there. He circled through the trees and worked his way through the crowd, which broke to let him, toward the lead truck, where Jim Ernst sat with Com and the generator. He scrambled up onto the bed, among the baggage and the bales and the older folk who had not walked, worked his way through to the place where Ernst sat, stood still as Ernst turned to him with one hand pressing the plug to his ear, and a look in his eyes that promised nothing but pain.
Dead,
Ernst said.
your father. Riot on the station.
My mother and brother?
No word. No word on any other casualties. Military sending. Mazian's fleet. Wants contact with us. Do I answer?
Shaken, he drew in a breath, aware of silence in the nearest crowd, of people staring up at him, of a handful of old Q residents on the truck itself looking at him with eyes as solemn as the Hisa images. Someone else scrambled up onto the truck bed and waded through, flung an arm about him. Milico. He was grateful, shivered slightly with exhaustion and delayed shock. He had anticipated it. It was only confirmation.
No,
He said.
don't answer.
A murmur started in the crowd. He turned on it.
No word on any other casualties,
He shouted, drowning that in a hurry.
Ernst, tell them what you picked up.
Ernst stood up, told them. He hugged Milico against him. Milico's parents and sister were up there, cousins, uncles, and aunts. The D's might survive, or, equally, they might die unnoted by the dispatches. There was more hope for the D's. They were not targets like the Constantins. The fleet had seized control, imposed martial law. Q. Ernst hesitated and doggedly continued before all uplifted faces below. Q had rioted and gotten across the line, with widespread destruction and loss of life, stationers and Q both. One of the old Q residents was crying. Perhaps, Emilio acknowledged painfully, perhaps they too had people for whom to worry. He looked down on row after row of solemn faces. His own staff, workers, Q, a scattering of Hisa. No one moved now. No one said anything. There was only the wind in the leaves overhead and the rush of the river beyond the trees.
So they're going to be here,
He said, trying to keep his voice steady.
They're going to be back here wanting us to grow crops for them and work the mills and the wells. And Company and Union are going to fight back and forth. But it's not Pell anymore, not in their hands, when what we grow can be taken to fill their holds. When our own fleet comes down here and works us under guns. When Union comes after them? What when they want more work happens to Downbelow? Go back if you like. Work for Porey until Union gets here. But I'm going on.
Where, sir?
That was the boy. He had forgotten the name, the one Hale had bullied the day of the mutiny. His mother was by him, in the circle of his arm. It was not defiance, but a plain question.
I don't know, he admitted. Wherever the Hisa can show us that's safe, if there is any such place. To live there. To dig in and live. Grow our crops for ourselves.
A murmur ran among them. Fear was always at the back of things for those who did not know down below. Fear of the land, of places where man was a minority. Men who were unconcerned by Hisa on station grew afraid of them in the open land, where men were dependent and Hisa were not. A lost breather, a failure. They died of such things on down below. The cemetery back at main base had grown as the camp did.
No Hisa, he said again, ever harmed a human. And that despite the things we've done, despite that we're the aliens here.
He climbed down from the truck, hit the yielding ruts of the road, lifted his hands for Milliko, knowing she at least was with him. She jumped down and questioned nothing.
We can set you up in the camp there. We can set you up in the camp back there, he said. Do that much for you at least, those of you that want to take your chances with Porey. Get the compressors running for you.
Mr. Constantine.
He looked up. It was one of the oldest women from the truck bed.
Mr. Constantine, I'm too old to work like that back there. I don't want to stay behind.
Lot of us going on.
A male voice said.
Anyone going back?
One of the queue foremen asked.
We need to send one of the trucks back with anyone.
There was silence, shaking of heads. Emilio stared at the lot of them, simply tired.
Bounder,
He said, looking to one of the Hisa who waited by the forest edge.
Where is Bounder? I need him.
Bounder came, out from among the trees, on the slope of the hill.
You come!
Bounder shouted down, beckoning up toward the hill and the trees.
All come now!
Bounder, we're tired, and we need things on the trucks. If we go that way, we can't take the trucks, and some of us aren't able to walk. Some are sick, Bounder.
We carry sick, many Hisa. We steal good things on trucks. Teach we good, Constantine man. We steal for you. You come.
He looked back at the others, at dismayed and doubtful faces. Hisa surrounded them. More and more came out of the woods, even some with young, which humans rarely saw. It was trust that such came out among them. All of the company sensed it, perhaps, for there was no protest. They helped the old and the unwell down from the trucks. Strong young Hisa made slings of their hands for them. Others heaved down the supplies and the equipment.
And what when they get the scan after us? And what when they get the scan after us?
Milliko murmured unhappily.
We've got to get deep cover fast.
Takes sensitive scan to tell human from Hisa. Maybe they won't find it profitable to go after us. Yet.
Bounder reached him, took his hand, wrinkled his nose at him in a Hisa wink.
You come with.
They were not good for a long walk, however much the news had put the strength of fright into them. A little while climbing uphill and down through woods and bracken, and they were all panting and some being carried who had started out walking. A little more, and the Hisa themselves began to slow the pace. And at length, when the number of humans they were having to carry grew more than they could manage, they called halt and themselves stretched out to sleep in the bracken.
Find cover,
Emilio urged Bounder.
Ships will see us. Not good, Bounder.
Sleep now,
Bounder said, curling up, and nothing would stir him or the others. Emilio sat staring at him helplessly, looked out over all the hillside while humans and Hisa lay down where they had dropped their bundles, curled up in their blankets, some of them, others of them too weary to spread them.
He used his own for a pillow, lay down on Miliko's, gathered her against him there under the sun that slanted down through the leaves. Bounder snuggled up to them and put an arm about him. He let himself go, slept, a weary, healthy sleep. And he waked with Bounder shaking him, and Miliko squatting with her arms across her knees, with a light fog moistening on the leaves, late, late day, and cloud, and threatening rainfall.
Emilio, I think you should wake up.
Emilio, I think you should wake up. I think it's some very important Hisa.
He rolled onto the other arm, gathered himself to his knees, squinting in the cold mist as other humans were waking all around him. They were old ones who had come from among the trees, Hisa with white abundantly salting their fur, 3 of them. He rose and bowed to them, which seemed right, in their land and in their woods. Bounder bowed and bobbed and seemed more sober than he was wont.
No human talk, they, Bounder said. They say come with.
We're coming, he said. Miliko, rouse them out.
She went, with quiet words spoke to the few still sleeping, and the word ran through all the number down the hill, weary, damp humans gathering up their baggage and their persons. There were even more Hisa arriving. The woods seemed alive with them, every trunk in the woods likely to conceal a flitting brown body. The old ones melted off through the woods. Bounder delayed until they were ready, and then started off, and Emilio took Miliko's blanket roll on his own shoulder and followed after. At any hint of a human limping as they went, brushing through damp leaves and dripping branches, there were Hisa to help, Hisa to take them by the hand and chatter sympathetically, even those who could not understand human speech. After them came others, Hisa thieves, bearing the inflatable dome and the compressors and the generators and the food and whatever else they could strip from the trucks, whether or not they themselves could possibly understand the use of it, like a brown horde of scavenger insects. Night came on them, and much of it they walked, resting when they must, stringing through the wood, but Hisa guided them so that none might stray, and snuggled close about them when they stopped so that the chill was not so bad. And once there was a thunder in the heavens that had nothing to do with the rain. Landing, the word passed from one to the other. The Hisa asked no questions. Their keen ears might have picked it up long ago. Porey was back. It would probably be Porey. For a little time they would probe the stripped base and send angry messages up to Mazian. Would have to get scan information, decide what they were going to do about it, and get Mazian's decision on it. All time consumed to their good. Rest and walk, and whenever they would falter, the gentle downers were there to touch, to urge, to cajole. It was cold when they stopped, and damp, though the rain never fell. And they were glad of morning, the first appearance of the light sifting through the trees, which the downers greeted with trills and chattering and renewed enthusiasm. And suddenly they were running out of trees, and the daylight broke clearer and clearer, on a hillside sloping down to a vast plain. The far distance spread before them as they came over the crest of a small rise, and the Hisa were going farther, going from the trees into that wide valley, that sanctuary. Emilio realized in sudden disturbance that that area... Oh, I misread that. I thought that was a period. This is a good example of one that I'll read aloud with all the punctuation once I get through it. The far distance spread before them as they came over the crest of a small rise, and the Hisa were going farther, going from the trees into that wide valley. That sanctuary, Emilio realized in sudden disturbance, that area the Hisa had always asked remain theirs, free of men, a vast open range only theirs, forever. So the way that all reads, I'll read that paragraph, punctuation included, because we do this for CJ Cherryh, because she's just that way.
And suddenly they were running out of trees, and the daylight broke clearer and clearer, on a hillside sloping down to a vast plain. The far distance spread before them as they came over the crest of a small rise, and the Hisa were going farther, going from the trees, into that wide valley, that sanctuary, Emilio realized in sudden disturbance, that area the Hisa had always asked remain theirs, free of men, a vast open range only theirs, forever.
No.
Emilio protested, looking about for Bounder. He made a gesture of appeal to him, who swung along with a cheerful step nearby.
No. Bounder, we mustn't go down into the open land. Mustn't. Can't, hear? The men with guns, they come in ships. Their eyes will see.
Old ones say come.
Bounder declared, never breaking stride, as if that settled it beyond argument. Already the descent began, all the Hisa rolling like a brown tide from the trees, bearing humans and human baggage with them, followed by other humans and others, toward the beckoning sunlit pallor of the plain.
Bounder!
Emilio stopped, with Milico beside him.
The men with guns will find us here. You understand me, Bounder?
I understand. See we all, Hisa humans. We see they too.
We can't go down there. They'll kill us. Do you hear me?
They say come.
The old ones. Bounder turned away from him and continued down slope, turned again as he walked and beckoned him and Milico. He took a step and another, knowing it was mad, knowing that there was a Hisa way of doing things and a human. Hisa had never lifted hands against the invaders of their world, had sat, had watched, and this was what they would do now. Humans had asked Hisa for their help, and Hisa offered them their way.
I'll talk to them,
He said to Milico.
I'll talk to their old ones, explain to them. We can't offend them, but they'll listen. Bounder, wait!
But Bounder walked on, ahead of them. The Hisa kept moving, flowing down that grassy plain, that vast grassy slope to the plain. At the center of it, where a stream seemed to flow, was something like an upthrust fist of rock, and a trampled circle, a shadow, that he realized finally as a circle of living bodies gathered about that object.
There must be every Hisa on the river down here, Milico said. It's some sort of meeting place, some kind of shrine.
Mazian won't respect it. Union isn't likely to either.
He foresaw massacre, disaster, Hisa sitting helpless while attack came. It was the Downers, he thought, the Downers themselves whose gentle ways had made Pell what it was. Time was when humans back on Earth had been terrified at the report of alien life. There had been talk of disbanding colonies even then, for fear of other discoveries. But no terror on Downbelow, never here, where Hisa walked empty-handed to meet humans and infected men with trust.
We've got to persuade them to get out of here,
He said.
I'm with you,
Milico said.
Help you?
Ahisa asked, touching Milico's hand, for she was limping as she leaned on him. They both shook their heads and kept walking together, at the back of the flow now, for most of the others had gone ahead, caught up in the general madness, even the old, born in the hands of the Hisa. They rested in their long descent, while the sun passed zenith, walked and rested and walked more, while the sun slid down the sky and shone beyond the low, rounded hills. A cylinder gave out in his mask, ruined by the moisture and the forest molds, ill augury for the others. He gasped against the obstruction, fumbled after another, held his breath while he did the exchange, and slipped the mask back on. They walked, slowly now, on the plain. In the distance rose that indistinct fish-shaped mass, an irregular pillar, out of a sea of Hisa bodies. And not alone Hisa. Humans were there, who rose up from where they sat, and walked out to meet them as they came through. Ito of Base 2 was there, with her staff and workers, and Jones of Base 1 with his, who offered hands to shake, who looked as bewildered as they were.
They said come here.
Ito said.
They said you would come.
Station's fallen,
he said, and the flow was going on, passing through toward the center, Hisa urging at him and Miliko most of all.
We've run out of options, Ito. Mazian's in control. This week. I can't speak for next.
Ito fell behind, and Jones, staying with their own people. And there were other humans, hundreds upon hundreds gathered there, who stood solemnly, as if numb. He met Deacon of the Wells crew, and MacDonald of Base 3, Hebert and Tausch of 4, but the Hisa swept him on, and he held Miliko's hand so they should not be separated in the vast throng. Now there were Hisa about them, only Hisa. The pillar hove up nearer, and not a pillar, but a cluster of images, like those Hisa had given to the station. Squat, globular forms and taller ones, bodies with multiple Hisa faces, surprised mouths and wide, graven eyes looking forever skyward. Hisa had made the like, and it was old. Awe came over him. Miliko slowed at last and simply gazed up, and he did, with Hisa all about them, feeling lost and small and alien before this towering, ancient stone.
You come.
A Hisa voice bade him. It was Bounder who took his hand, who led them through to the very foot of the image. Old ones indeed sat there, the oldest Hisa of all, those faces and shoulders were silvered, who sat surrounded by small sticks thrust into the earth, sticks carved with faces and hung with beads. Emilio hesitated, reluctant to intrude within that circle, but Bounder led them through, into the very presence of the old ones.
Sit.
Bounder urged. Emilio made his bow and Miliko hers, and settled cross-legged before the 4 elders. Bounder spoke in the chattering Hisa tongue, was answered by the frailest of the 4. And carefully then that old one reached, leaning on one hand, to touch first Miliko and then him, as if blessing them.
You good come here, Bounder said, perhaps a translation. You warm come here.
Bounder, thank them. Thank them very many thanks. But tell them that there's danger from the up above, that the eyes of up above look down on this place, and that men with guns may come here and do hurt.
Bounder spoke. 4 pairs of aged eyes regarded them with no less tranquillity. One answered.
Ship come above we heads here. Bounder said. Come, look, go away.
You're in danger. Please make them understand that.
Bounder translated. The eldest lifted a hand toward the images which towered above them, and answered.
Hisa place. Night come. We sleep, dream they go, dream they go.
A second of the elders spoke. There was a human name amid it. Bennett. And another. Lukas.
Bennett,
Those nearest echoed.
Bennett, Bennett, Bennett.
The murmur passed the limits of the circle, moved like wind across the vast gathering.
We steal food, Bounder said with a Hisa grin. We learn steal good. We steal you, make you safe.
Guns,
Miliko protested.
guns, Bounder.
You safe.
Bounder paused to catch something one of the old ones said.
Make you names. Call you he come again. Call you she hold out hands. To he me, Mihan Tisar. You spirit good. You safe come here. Love you. Bennett man, he teach we dream human dreams. Now you come, we teach you Hisa dreams. We love you, to he me, Mihan Tisar.
He found nothing to say, only looked up at the vast images that stared round-eyed at the heavens, stared about him at the gathering which seemed to stretch to all the horizon, and for a moment he found himself believing that it was possible, that this overawing place might daunt any enemy who came to it. A chant began from the old ones, spread to the nearest, and to the farther and farther ranks. Bodies began to sway, passing into the rhythm of it.
Bennett,
It breathed again and again.
he teach we dream human dreams. Call you he come again.
Emilio shivered, reached and put his arm about Milico, in the mind-numbing whisper which was like the brush of a hammer over bronze, the sighing of some vast instrument which filled all the twilit heavens. The sun declined to the last. The passing of the light brought chill, and a sigh from uncounted throats, breaking off the song. Then the coming of the stars drew pointing gestures aloft, soft cries of joy.
Name she come first.
Bounder told them, and called for them the stars in turn, as keen Hisa eyes spied them and hailed them like returning friends. Walk together, come in spring, she always dance. The chant whispered to life again, minor key, and bodies swayed. Exhaustion told on them. Milico grew glassy-eyed. He tried to hold her, to stay awake himself, but Hisa were nodding too, and Bounder patted them, made them know it was accepted to rest. He slept, wakened after a time, and food and drink were set beside them. He moved the mask to eat and drink, ate and breathed in alternation. Elsewhere the few awake stirred about among the sleeping multitudes, and for all the dream-bound peace of the hour attended normal needs. He felt his own, and slipped far away through the vast, vast crowd to the edges, where other humans slept, and beyond, where Hisa had made neat trenches for sanitation. He stood there a time on the edges of the camp, until others came, and he regained his sense of time, staring back at the images and the starry sky and the sleeping throng. Hisa answer. Being here, sitting here beneath the heavens, saying to the sky and their gods, "See us. We have hope." He knew himself mad, and stopped being afraid for himself, even for Milico. They waited for a dream, all of them, and if men would turn guns on the gentle dreamers of Downbelow, then there would be no more hope at all. So the Hisa had disarmed them at the beginning, with empty hands. He walked back, toward Milico, toward Bounder, and the Old Ones, believing in a curious way that they were safe, in ways that had nothing to do with life and death, that this place had been here for ages, and had waited long before men had come, looking to the heavens. He settled beside Milico, lay and looked at the stars, and thought of his choices. And in the morning a ship came down. There was no panic among the tens of thousands of Hisa. There was none among the humans who sat among them. Emilio rose with Milico's hand in his and watched the ship settle, landing probe, far across the valley, where it could find clear ground.
I should go speak to them.
He said through Bounder to the Old Ones.
No talk, the eldest answered through him. Wait. Dream.
I wonder, Milico observed placidly, if they really want to take on all Downbelow in their situation up on station.
Other humans had stood up. Emilio sat down with Milico, and all across the gathering they began to settle back again, to sit and to wait. And after a long time there was the distant hail of a loudspeaker.
There are humans here.
We're not going to do that.
There are humans here,
The metallic voice thundered across the plain.
We are from the carrier Africa. Will the one in charge please come forward and identify himself?
Don't.
Milico begged him when he shifted to get up.
They could shoot.
They could shoot if I don't go to. If.
That has to be a misprint. There's an extraneous comma here. We're not going to worry about it.
They could shoot if I don't go talk to them. right into this crowd. They've got us.
Is Emilio Constantin here? I have news for him.
We know your news.
He muttered, and when Milico started to get up, he held her arms.
Milico, I'm going to ask something for you.
No.
Stay here. I'm going to go. That's what they'll want. The base working again. I'm going to leave those that won't fare well under Porey. Most of us. I need you here, in charge of them.
An excuse.
No, and yes. To run this. To fight a war if it comes to that. To stay with the Hisa and warn them and keep foreigners off this world. Who else could I trust to do that? Who else will the Hisa understand as they do you and me? The other staff?
He shook his head, stared into her dark eyes.
There's a way to fight, as the Hisa do, and I'm going back if that's what they ask. Do you think I want to leave you? But who else is there to do it? Do it for me.
I understand you,
She said hoarsely. He stood up. She did, and hugged and kissed him for such a long moment that he found it harder than it had been before to leave. But she let go then. He took his gun from his pocket, gave it to her. He could hear the noise of the loudspeaker again. They were being hailed, message repeated.
Staff!
He shouted out across the gathering.
Shout it across! I want some volunteers.
The cry went out. They came, wading through from the farthest edge of the gathering, from one base command and the next, and main base. It took time. The troops who had advanced within hail of the other side waited, for surely they could see the movement, and time and force were on their side. He had his staffers turn their backs to that direction and crowd close, reckoning that they might have scopes on them. Hisa in the vicinity looked up, round-eyed and interested.
They want bodies, he said softly, and the sabotage fixed. That's all they can be here for. Strong backs. Supply list taken care of. Perhaps all that interests them is main base because they can't use the others. I don't think we can ask Q to go back and take more of what we took from Porey before we walked out. It's a question of time, of holding out, of having men enough so that we can stop some move against Downbelow. Or maybe just of living. You understand me. It's my guess that they want their ships provisioned and they want station supplied. And while they get that, we save something. We wait for things to sort themselves out on station, and we save what we can. I want the biggest men from each unit, the strongest constitutions, those who can do most and take most and hold their tempers. Field labor, not knowing what else. Maybe impressment. We don't know. Need about 60 men from each base, about all they can take with them, I'll reckon.
You going? He nodded. There were reluctant nods in turn from Jones and other staffers.
I'll go.
Ito said. All the other base officers had volunteered. He shook his head at her.
Not in this, he said. Women all stay here under Milico's command. All. No argument. Fan out and pass the word. About 60 volunteers from each base. Hurry about it. They won't wait forever out there.
They dispersed, running. Constantin! The metallic voice said again. He looked that way, made out the armored figures far across the seated gathering, reckoned that they did have a scope, and saw him plainly.
We're running out of patience.
We're running out of patience.
Whatever. He delayed kissing Milico yet again, heard Bounder nearby translating a steady flow to the old ones. He started through the camp in the direction of the troops. Others began to walk through the seated Hisa, coming to join with him. And not alone staffers and resident workers. Men from Q came, as many as the residents. He reached the edge of the gathering and found that Bounder was behind him, with a number of the biggest Hisa males.
You don't have to go,
he told them.
Friend,
Bounder said. The men from Q said nothing, but they showed no inclination to turn back.
Thanks,
he said. They were within clear sight of the troops now, at the very edge of the gathering. Africa troops, indeed. He could make out the lettering.
Constantine, the officer said over the loudspeaker, who sabotaged the base?
I ordered it, he shouted back. How was I to know we'd have Union down here? It's fixable. Got the parts. I take it you want us back.
What do you have going on here, Constantine?
Holy place. Sanctuary. You'll find it marked restricted on the charts. I've got a crew together. We're ready to go back, repair the machinery. We leave our sick with the HISA. Open up main base only until we know the attack alert is firmly off up there. Those other bases are experimental and agricultural and produce nothing useful to you. This crew is sufficient to handle main base.
You making conditions again, Constantine?
You get us back to main base and have your supply lists ready. We'll see you get what you need, quickly and without fuss. That way, both our interests are protected. HISA workers will be cooperating with us. You'll get everything you want.
There was silence from the other side. No one moved for a moment. You get those missing machine parts, Mr. Constantine. He turned, made a move of his hand. One of his own staff, Haynes, went treading back, gathering up 4 of the men. If you're missing anything, don't look for patience, Mr. Constantine. He did not move. His staff had heard. It was enough. He stood facing the detail, 10 of them with rifles, and beyond them sat the landing probe, bristling with weapons, some aimed this way, with other troops standing by the open hatch. Silence persisted. Perhaps he was supposed now to ask news, to succumb to shock, learning of murder, of the death of his family. He ached to know, and would not ask. He made no move. Mr. Constantine, your father is dead. Your brother presumed dead. Your mother remains alive in a security-sealed area under protective custody. Captain Mazian sends his regrets. Anger heated his face, rage at the tormenting. He had asked for self-control from those who would go with him. He stood rock still, waiting for the return of Haynes, and the others. Do you understand me, Mr. Constantine?
My compliments, he said, to Captain Mazian and Captain Porey.
There was silence then. They waited. Eventually, Haynes and the others came back, carrying a great deal of equipment.
Bounder, he said quietly, looking at the HISA who stood near with his fellows, better you walk to the base if you come. Men go on the ship here. Men with guns are there. HISA can walk.
Go quick,
Bounder agreed. Come ahead, Mr. Constantine. He walked forward, quietly, ahead of the others. The troops moved to one side, to guard their progress with lowered rifles. And softly, at first, like a breeze, a murmur, a chant rose from the multitude about the pillar. It swelled until it shook the air. Emilio glanced back, fearful of the reaction of the troops. They stood by, unmoving, rifles in hand. They could not but feel suddenly very few, for all their armor and their weapons. The chant kept up, a hysteria, an element in which they moved. Thousands of HISA bodies swayed to that song as they had swayed beneath the night sky.
He come again. He come again.
They heard it as they approached the ship, with the hold gaping open and more troops to surround them. It was a sound to shake even the up above when messages passed, something the new owners could not enjoy hearing. He was swept along in the power of it, thinking of Milico, of his family murdered. What he had lost, and he went empty-handed, as the HISA went, to the invaders. And that is where we will call it for today. Yeah, so things are moving along. Dramatic things are happening. Let's see. Let me suss out where I'm going to wrap up next week.
Wow, that chapter is really freaking long. It just keeps on going. Okay, so we're gonna not do that one. We'll have to. Next week will be a shorter one then. Geez, that means the week after is gonna be pretty long, but that's okay. Yeah, there's no easy way to slice that, I regret to say. Yeah, because chapter 3 book uh, of book 5 is just really long.
Of course. Of course.
Whatever, so it's a short one next week. That's fine. Actually, that works out well because I got stuff I have to do the next day, so I can get a jump on that, I suppose. And I don't want to break it off mid-chapter, if I can help it. Okay, so yeah, things are moving along pretty nicely. Anything else of interest? I don't know. I can't think of anything. Yeah, so that'll about do it for today. Later this week, we do have Free Read Fridays, in which we'll be reading more of Death's End by Shijin Liu. We will be getting to part 3 of that book. I've got some fan art to share when we get there, and dramatic events there too. Alrighty. So with that, I'm going to leave you all. Hope you enjoyed. If you didn't enjoy, I'm sorry. If you did enjoy, I'm glad. If you're listening to this after the fact as a recording, hi. I do these live. That's why they're really rough. Every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, starting about 12 noon U.S. East Coast time, or Eastern Standard Time, or UTC minus 6, 5, 6, depending on if it's daylight savings or not. I think that's it. I think that's about it. Yeah. Stay safe, stay sane, be decent to each other, and I will see you